Let's cross to New York and speak to filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, let's start with the illegal immigration crisis in the US. It's quite incredible how the bulk of the media has ignored this crisis, despite the fact that we've got record numbers streaming over that southern border since Biden became president, and the figures are astonishing.
Yeah. This year alone, 3 million people have been caught at the border. Now, Rita, that's caught at the border. It's untold numbers who've crossed illegally. You would think it's a multiple of that. And you heard the word crisis, but this administration refuses to use the word crisis. Biden was in Arizona, didn't deem to go to the border. And of course, we have Kamala Harris, who is technically the border czar, who has actually never been to the border while she's been vice president or border czar. The administration is now looking to strip Title 42. Now, Title 42 is part of the public health code, which allows the president, in case of national emergency, to kick people out because of a public health emergency, to kick people back across the border. Now, they're trying to strip that away and say we don't need it anymore because we're no longer in a national COVID emergency. The pandemic is over in order for them to strip Title 42. Now, the irony is, and by the way, the lack of self-awareness is astonishing, that they're using the exact opposite argument when Biden is trying to illegally pay back people and cancel their student loan debt. He's saying because the Patriot Act gave him national emergency powers during a health emergency, and he's now saying since we are in a COVID pandemic, I have the ability, which he doesn't, by the way, to allow people to forgive their national student loan debt. So the lack of self-awareness is crazy. Yeah, they have no intent to stop the illegal crossings. They're not interested. They're not looking at it. And in fact, they're making a massive geopolitical mistake. They're doing it for purely cynical reasons. They're doing it because they think ultimately people cross the border, they're people of color, they're going to vote Democrat. But what we're actually seeing over the course of a generation is that the people cross the border, their kids and their kids' kids eventually move toward the Republican side. It's insane.
And while the country is facing a number of serious issues, from millions crossing the border illegally to enormous cost of living issues, we've got President Biden in the Caribbean at the home of a billionaire and a major Democrat donor, Bill and Connie Neville. Tell me what's happening there. This is not great optics, if you ask me.
The optics, Rita, are terrible. But again, I like to be honest, right? I'm a straight shooter. I call as I see it. Look, I don't have a particular problem with a president not being in the country when the weather gets very cold, or even if there's kind of a national emergency of some sort when it comes to weather. Unless you're talking about a total shutdown of the country, I don't think the president being in the White House versus being accessible in the Virgin Islands makes much of a difference. But the problem is the hypocrisy, the complete hypocrisy. The media has not been covering this as an issue, right? The media has, in fact, ignored the fact that he is in the warm Virgin Islands at a billionaire's house during this time. But do you remember when Ted Cruz went to Cancun while there was a freeze in Texas? They would not stop talking about it. They would not let it go. Look, if you're going to be consistent, that's fine. If you are pissed off about Cruz being in Cancun at the time, that's fine. Just make sure you hold Biden the same standard. But they wouldn't do that. They don't do that. That's my problem, Rita. Like, in a national emergency, I don't even think a president should go to a hot spot when there's some kind of weather-related or, I think that just makes things even worse. I'm not one of those guys. And I'm not looking to attack Biden just because he's doing something I don't particularly like. But I'm just asking for consistency. Is that so hard to ask for, Rita?
Oh, I wouldn't have thought so, but we saw them get hysterical every time Trump played a game of golf whilst he was president. And Biden has spent a significant portion of his presidency at his holiday homes in Delaware and elsewhere. And then that has got fairly minimal coverage as well, just how little time he has actually spent in the White House.